Bienvenidos sean todos ustedes. Welcome everybody. And in this occasion, we have a very special show in the number 18 and the episode number 18 of the stream. And guess what? We have some of the greatest artists that we have known from one of our favorite comic groups that are publishing right now some of the most outstanding stories. And let's welcome our guest right now, Jamal Igle. How are you doing, Jamal?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's a real pleasure having you in here. And of course, if you have already watched previous streams or the regular podcast of D-Strip-Ando, you know the rest of our merry gang. Right over me, there is Richard Grayson, Nightboy.
Yeah, thank you for joining us again, and thank you for being here, Jamal.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Richard. Thank you.
And there we have also Psychotropic. How are you doing?
Very fine. And it's a pleasure to have a Jamal Igle with us.
And last but not least, we have the greatest force in the universe. We have the outstanding Wookie. How are you doing, Wookie?
Hi, thanks.
All right, so
nice to meet you.
As you can see, we have a band of merry people in here. We are not men on tights, but we can sing and we can entertain at least for the following half an hour. But let's begin with you, Jamal. And in case that the people doesn't know about you, I added a lower tier that can describe your abilities. Incredible master of images, because you have been working in some of the most outstanding comics and one of the most fun, like The Wrong Earth in here. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about what brought you to work in comic books in this case?
What brought me to working in comic books in the first place is I had a very permissive grandfather.
Nice.
Well, no, seriously, my grandfather, when I was 5, he took me to see the original Superman with Christopher Reeve in the theater. And I fell in love with Superman and with superheroes and with comic books. So from like that time forward, all I wanted to do was work in comics. So that was the biggest thing. But it was always like I was always surrounded by comic books and cartoons and toys and everything, and my family was always very encouraging as far as that stuff went. Didn't always understand, but they were always very encouraging. So after that, I decided. I mean, I knew I wanted to do something in comics. And I like to draw, and I like to make models and stuff, and I was always drawing in school, well, like a lot of us do, reading comics. I started reading comics regularly from like the age of 7. So yeah, that became my thing. And then I'm from New York. So here in New York, we have a lot of art high schools. I went to the High School of Art and Design. I went to the School of Visual Arts. I went to the Art Students League. And just like the entire time, when I was at Art and Design in high school, I got the opportunity to do a 6-month internship at DC. So that was like my first job in the industry, and that sort of like cemented the deal. That was like, this is exactly what I want. This is what I want to do.
That's incredible. So we have more questions from the rest of the co-hosts in here. I believe that Nightboy, you have something already prepared, right?
Yeah. You went from your first job at DC Comics to Sony, and you work on the CGI in series like Max Steel and stuff like that. How did it help you, or how difficult or how different it was from what you thought it could be, and how did it help you to step forward on the following jobs?
It actually it's actually really surprising, because a lot of the people that I worked with at Sony were also comic book people. So you had Cynthia Martin, who was a Wonder Woman artist back in the 80s, was working at Sony at the same time. Eric Canetti actually was in the cubicle that I ended up being. He had just left Sony when I joined the staff. So yeah, it was full of like ex-comic book people and people currently working in the industry. So the transition wasn't that difficult for me. in terms of storyboards, because part of my background outside of comics was in advertising. So I used to be a junior art director in an ad agency. So I knew the basics of storyboarding for commercials, but I didn't know how to apply that to animation. And what happened was when I got to Sony, it became sort of like a boot camp for me, because I learned so much working on those shows. And the 4-5 months that I was there, I learned a ton. And I was actually able to take a lot of what I learned at Sony and apply it to my comic book work. So the thing about working on, especially at that time, working on a CGI show like Max Steel, was the way that we were working was we were drawing on Post-it notes. We were drawing on 2x2 Post-it notes. And the reason why we were drawing on the Post-it notes was you needed to make edits very quickly. So I was working with a director named Adu Padden, who is a very famous animation director. He worked on Tiny Toons, he worked on Animaniacs, he worked on a lot of action shows, he worked on a lot of stuff over at Sony. He worked on Men in Black, worked on Big Guy and Rusty, worked on the Godzilla series. So a lot of what we were doing was basically just movement more than anything else. We didn't have to draw things exactly. My job wasn't to draw things on model. My job was to tell the story, because we had to put together the animatics, and so everything had to be drawn on these Post-it notes, so you could just take stuff off really quickly and add stuff or make changes very quickly. And Adu would take the way that we were doing it then was he would take the storyboard sheets and he would time everything with a stopwatch against the voice track. We would get the voice track first, which I've heard isn't always the case, but that was my experience working in animation. So he would do the timing against the voice track and make his changes and make his notes. He would, and basically it's like editing a movie before it even gets shot. So everything was already there, and then you send it to the animatics room, and then they would put the actual animatic together to send to the animators in Korea who were working on the show. So I took all of the timing and the sense of movement and that energy, and I was able to transfer that back into my comic book work. And there was sort of like a quantum leap actually from before and after, because before that it wasn't that I was drawing things incorrectly, but it didn't have the kind of energy that I feel like my work had going forward. It didn't have the sense of movement that I feel like my work has now. And that came from being just didn't have to concentrate on making it pretty. I just had to tell a story visually. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. Siko, do you have a question prepared?
Yeah, I want to talk with Jamal. He's very young, and he has been doing almost everything here, right? he got an exclusive deal with DC Comics. Then he went to independent studios. He have creator-owned work. So you are very kind of Renaissance man. But for your point of view, it's better to have an exclusive deal or have the liberty to do the things that you want to do, because you all have a studio, no?
Right.
You have you are branding or publicity.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
What works better for you?
Well, right now, being my own boss works better for me because, well, here's the thing. There's a wonderful thing about being exclusive to a company. There's a job security there. You know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, but you're limited in potential opportunity. And I'm all about opportunity. I'm all about getting to do different things and things that are weird or just seem like they would be fun, you know. It is exactly, you know, when I left DC and my contract ended back in 2012, and I was trying to figure out what the next step was going to be for me creatively before, and even while I was working on the first Molly Danger book. When I made the decision to do Molly Danger, I would not have been able to do that if I had still been exclusive to DC. But one of the things that I was able to do in between was I went to my friend Chris Ryle over at IDW, and I said, I'm looking for work. And is it, you know, do you know anybody that you can hook me up? I wasn't necessarily looking for something from IDW, but Chris was one of the few people that I knew outside of DC. Like, I didn't know any editors outside of DC at that point. So, and Chris came back to me and said, we've got this series that we want to do. It's Kiss, but it's Kiss as the Untouchables. So, yeah, so it's like, I would not have, you know, been able to do, you know, Kiss, the band set in 1930 Chicago, if I had still been exclusive to a single company, and then at the same time been able to do my own work, be able to still do advertising work, still, you know, at the same time, you know, after I did Molly Danger, I became the vice president of marketing for Action Lab Entertainment. Again, you know, I like having my hands in different pools. I like being involved with different things, because as much as I like writing and as much as I like being an artist, I found that it's important for me, for my mental health, more than anything else, to have different things and different opportunities available to me, and, you know, different challenges presented to me.
You got bored easily with the same routine?
No, I wouldn't say that I get bored necessarily. It's very easily to, especially when you're a young artist, it's very easily to want to concentrate on one thing. Okay. And for the bulk of my career, the one thing that I concentrated on was being the best penciler that I could possibly be, which was great. But I put other things aside in order to do that, other creative things aside in order to do that. And even though I wanted to write, and I would pitch stuff when I was at DC, but, you know, they never saw me as a writer particularly. Yeah. It's harder when you're in that position to make that kind of leap, you know.
You tend to be unidimensional.
Yes, exactly, because you become typecast in a way. They see you as one thing. They don't see you as anything else, in spite of the fact that prior to me becoming a full-time artist, you know, I worked at an ad agency. I worked in marketing. You know, I wrote press releases. I wrote scripts. I was an actor. I did a lot of different things even then. You know, so it's, again, like I said, it's very important for me to be able to have that diversity. And I also don't want to, you know, there's going to come a time when I'm either going to be unable to draw, unwilling to draw, or I'm, you know, as, you know, a lot of older artists end up doing, they kind of get pushed to the side for younger talent. So I'd like to be able to fall on my other skills as well, and kind of set that up in advance instead of waiting to scramble and figure out how to do it later on.
All right.
Okay.
Let's go with Wookie. You have a question prepared, right?
Yeah. Jamal, you write, you draw, but which one is your passion? What is the most the thing you say this is my kind?
In terms of like in terms of like the stuff that I do is writing or drawing or I mean, I'm always going to be, I think ultimately I'm always going to be an artist first. I think that's the thing that drives me, the visual drives me more than anything else. And, the challenge of that drives me more than anything else. But I mean, it doesn't mean I don't enjoy writing. I love writing. Writing it's difficult. It is very, to write to write convincingly and to write with passion is, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. I think a lot of people assume that because writers are able to put out more than a typical comic book artist, that it's not a mentally taxing endeavor. It's daunting to stare at your computer monitor and trying to figure out how you're going to tackle something. Yeah, it's just as daunting as sitting down at my table and looking at a blank page and figure out how am I going to tell this story, how I'm going to make things exciting. But yeah, being an artist is probably just the thing that it's always going to come back to that in some way, shape, or form.
Cool. Well, if you don't mind me, I want to talk a little bit about some of your previous works in comics. Don't worry, I won't go that far back, so it won't be like. Remember your first kindergarten cartoon that you drew or something like that?
Well, we got 30 years to cover, so.
It all began. No, don't worry, it won't be like that. But for example, there is a project that it was really interesting for the nature that it was first announced and then released, and I am talking about the Black series. It began with a Kickstarter, and then luckily, it got a lot of support from the beginning, and then it was published by Black Mask. Yes. A huge shout out to our friends from Black Mass. We have already had also the chance to interview some people from there, like Stephanie Phillips, Zach Thompson, Lonnie Nadler, et al. And I would like to know more about the development of this project from the main idea and the first series that was where you were creating this kind of world, especially because by the time that it was published, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2016. Well. There have been a lot of the change from there to now, but it is still a very relevant series. It doesn't matter in this case if you are located in the United States, if you are located in Mexico. In here, I had the chance to read it, and for example, for me, it wasn't let's say like a lot about. You were telling a story that was located in a place, but you were telling an important story, and you were telling a story that actually relates no matter where you are located, no matter your economical situation. And also, I have to confess in here, the look that I am wearing right now, it's based in one of the characters in Yoctur, who is right in there. So I actually shaved my beard to look a little bit like that. Probably it's about the idea, and you will know why if you read the story. But can you tell us a little bit about developing this story?
Okay, well, I'm actually, as I like to say, if the Black crew are the Beatles, I'm Ringo. So, no, the Black is basically the idea of Kwanzaa Savageau and Tim Smith III. They created Black. They created Black probably like 12, 13, maybe 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. And, at the time they were both working for, Kwanzaa was working at DC as an editor and Tim was working at Marvel, and they couldn't do it themselves. Back in 2015, they approached me. I had worked with Kwanzaa at DC a couple of years before on a Ray miniseries with Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray. And so I knew Kwanzaa from that, but we also had friends in common. And, you know, so when they approached me about doing this series, they came over to my place, and Kwanzaa just showed me a one sheet on his phone that said, "What if only black people had superpowers?" And I was just like, okay, I'm in. The thing about Black as a series is, like you were saying, it is very, very relevant, not just, you know, to African Americans or to Mexicans or Frenchmen, or those same themes of inequality and prejudice are things that I think everybody, especially nowadays, which is kind of sad that we're still dealing with all of this stuff after hundreds and hundreds of years of, you know, just, you know, BS. But, you know, the fact that these things are still relevant, you know, and that reach across to everybody, and that we could put a little bit of a superhero spin on the story as well. I think that's what makes it work very well. So here's the part where I'm Ringo. So
you're still having shows in Las Vegas, so you are actually successful and
absolutely. I'm playing with my all-star band all the time. Tim actually designs all the characters. So my job is to take Tim's designs and translate them into my style, and then use my storytelling. And then as we were going along with the first book, it became more of me, less, we started out initially with a full script, and then we started doing things Marvel style, or the way that Marvel used to do it. So they would give me a plot, Kwanzaa would give me a plot, and then I would just go off and lay out the pages the way that I wanted to lay them out, and then hand them back to him, and, you know, there you go. So it is like the ultimate collaborative effort, because there's, you know, just all of this information going back between the four of us, including Derwin, who did all the gray tones on the first book, and he's doing the gray tones on the second book, and then Sarah Litt, our editor, and then, you know, seeing those gorgeous Kari Randolph covers, and, you know, just everything. So just the whole package from beginning to end was just, you know, I was proud to be a part of it, and happy to be a part of it, and happy to contribute to it. So, you know, and people seem to like it. So
yeah, it's one of the series that I strongly recommend. And once again, it doesn't matter when you read it. Hopefully, we will come to a time where this will be something more like a memory, something that we have to remember, some history like that. But still, I am outstanding about the relevancy that it still has. But let's go to perhaps a more recent topic. Richard Grayson, do you have something prepared, right?
But I don't know if it's recent or not, but it's kind of related to what you say about Black. I remember that you were one of the first artists to be involved in the project for DC Comics that's Firestorm. It was a little before. 1 year later, and Infinite Crisis and all that stuff.
Right.
And I remember that you weren't the first 5 numbers. You just got there until number 6 around that time, until before the 3 numbers before it was canceled, right?
Yeah. Well, basically what happened was Chris Williams was the original series artist, and he ended up leaving, I think, with issue 5. And then Chris Batista came on for an issue, and then there was another. I forget who the other. And my first issue was issue 8. So they had wanted me to come on before, but I was finishing up some work for Marvel, and then I was working on a graphic album for the Humanoids Associé and work. So it's like, again, you know, this is Jamal. Jamal is constantly juggling things.
Yeah.
So.
So my question is, it goes this way. It was the first time that an iconic, I don't know if you can call it first some iconic, but a relevant superhero, but was changed in his race. from Ronnie Raymond and Martin Saint, Jew and white guy, to a Jew and a black guy, got them out. Yeah. Well, it's the interaction between the characters,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it came
It's
to my
complicated.
yeah, very complicated. It came to no, but the interaction was very well written. It was I could say it's flawless because like you say, it comes. It delivers a certain degree of relevance between the interaction of. We just need to be decent human beings for being a superhero. It doesn't matter your race, right? But you made little changes along the way. What was? But the question is, what was the reaction of the people around you? You know, at conventions or fans from the character when the character was changed from being a white guy that came back. I think that you draw him, Ronald Raymond, like for 2 issues, and then he died again,
Right.
and became a very powerful, a very interesting character. What's the name of? So relevant that I just remember that he was Firestorm. But how was the reaction of the people around you for changing character in a so radical way?
Well, okay. You have to keep in mind that at the time when they made the change, nobody knew, like the fans did not know what had happened to Ronnie Raymond. They had just introduced Jason Rush into the series with the first new issue with no explanation of how he became Firestorm or what his connection to anything else was. He didn't seem to have any real connection other than the costume and the powers. So about, I think around the time that I came on the book was when they had revealed in Identity Crisis that Ronnie had been killed by the Shadow Thief. And then his energy went into Jason. That pissed off a lot of people. It made a lot of people very, very angry. Not just the how, but the why. And it became a real source of contention for a lot of people. Now, I never really got a lot of that directed at me like in real life. At the time, you know, I'm 5'10". At the time I was 320. I was a bit, I'm 225 now. So I was a much bigger guy then. So, and apparently,
People wouldn't like to mess with you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't get a lot of that in person, but online there was a lot of
people not agreeing with what we
not agreeing, being very angry. And then I think the idea of bringing Ronnie back for the 2 issues that we had him back was to sort of give him kind of like a proper goodbye, like we're definitely killing him off, but here's your chance to see him one last time, and then we're going to move on. That seemed to upset some people even more. So we really did have a lot of scrutiny on us for like the remainder of our run. It just with some very racist people, it just seemed like there was nothing that we could do to placate them. And I know after a while we just stopped trying. We were just going to tell the best story that we could possibly tell. And Stuart Moore, when he took over with number 14, he and I would talk a lot, and he would ask me questions about how I thought Jason would react to things, and I really put drawing Jason was the first time that I felt like I put more of myself into a character. Jason is very much me. When I was drawing Jason, he was very much me. And the way that I feel like I move, and the way the way that I carry myself was very much the way that I try to depict Jason, especially after 1 year later. Was we wanted to grow him up a little bit, and I purposely, like, when he was originally designed, he was a much skinnier character, and a little bit more timid. Post 1 year later, we beefed him up a little bit. Didn't make him like hugely muscled, but I wanted to show that there was like a clear growth in him and a clear change, an evolution, exactly. So it did get it got bad at one point, when when DC had their message boards way back. Somebody started a thread on the Firestorm message board called "Ditch the Black Dude."
Wow.
And it started out racist and devolved into super racist. And but it wasn't just Jason that was getting attacked, because at the same time they had introduced Kate Spencer's Manhunter. They had, they were making all these changes that seemed to be. They introduced Jamie Reyes as Blue Beetle. So they were introducing all these new characters, or making changes to long-standing trademarks and trying to infuse new life. But these were all things that were being done independently. They just sort of coalesced at the same time. So it just became this thing where everything was being attacked. So it's kind of like, when I go on Twitter now and I see people, complaining about stuff, and it's like, oh, please, I've been dealing with this since 2006.
And the funny part is that once you left the book, I think it was number 31 around that time.
32, 32 was the last issue.
Yeah, and you and Stuart left at the same time, right?
Right. Because we left at the same time because they were going to cancel the book. And then they brought on Dwayne McDuffie, and they decided they weren't going to cancel the book, but then they decided they were going to cancel the book again after a couple of issues, which,
it was a shame, because I think that the job that the amount of work that you put on every single page, and what Stuart did on the story, it shows us a very, very clear synergy between the artist and the writer, right?
Thank you.
Was that you left, even if Mr. McDuffie was writing the book, it wasn't the same feel. It wasn't just same. It was like, okay, bring back Stuart and Jamal, please, because this is the Firestorm that really got us into this character, into Jason Rush.
Oh yeah, no, but I mean, just in general, like, I'm kind of a psychopath, so I put a lot in. I mean, if you've been following my work, I put a lot into everything. I spent way too much time looking at Jeff Darrow and George Perez. So
we can tell by a cover that it's a Firestorm carrying a Firestorm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an homage, right? That you did.
Absolutely.
You do like 50 Firestorms on the background.
Yeah, that was nuts. But here's the thing: is like a lot of those Firestorms were versions that were already established. So you have you got like Jason's other costume, and then you've got like Hozard, and you got like the Tom Mandrake Firestorm, and a bunch of other different versions in there. And that was fun. I mean, DC didn't let me do that many covers, so I was definitely going to take advantage.
Yeah, and you did an amazing job. The first time that I saw that cover, I was blown out of my mind. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I didn't know that there was so many Firestorms.
Yeah. No, it was, I mean, but that was the thing about working on that book. It's just like, Stuart, here's the thing. Writers like to write or they try to cater what they're writing to an artist specific interest and that sort of thing. When a writer asks me that question, I say challenge me, make me work. Make me do research, make me have to reference stuff, like make me have to try and figure stuff out. I like a challenge. I like being I have just as much fun scouring old books for reference photos of 1930 Chicago as I do drawing superheroes. That's just there's something in my brain. It's just the way that I'm built. I like filling out the world that I'm working on. I like giving it, to use lack of of a better term, I guess the best possible term is verisimilitude. Thank you, Richard Donner. It's just creating that reality and creating that creating a sense of immersion, which I always appreciate from, I named Darrow and I named Perez, and then, you look at like Joy DeBernay or Steve Rude or Mobius or, anybody like the artists, Brian Bolland, Dave Gibbons, the guys who like will draw the nooks and crannies of everything. That's the stuff that Dave Stevens. That's the stuff that I was always attracted to as a reader and as a fan. So that's what I try to put in to my own work.
Yeah, and we as readers appreciate it a lot because it's more than we are reading a book in 5 minutes. Once that you got all those details and all that the research that you show on your work, it's like we spend like 25-30 minutes looking at the whole book and every page, looking for those small details, all those little pieces that you work on it. It's gratifying.
Thank you.
Refreshing.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go. We have time for a couple of more questions. Let's go first with Zico and then with Wookie to go for the next topics. Zico.
Okay. I would like to ask Jamal, what does he prefer? To work with a script or the Marvel way? Because you tend to love writing too. Mm-hmm. So it's a very interesting take. You have more opportunity to put a little bit more of you.
Actually, it's kind of weird because being the completist that I am, when I write a full script, and I even write a full script for myself.
Okay.
So, and it's actually really funny because I will be working from one of my own scripts and want to kill the writer for putting all this stuff in. But I like working from a full script more because it gives me an opportunity to shape the emotions of the characters, to do expressions, if I know what's going to be coming out of their mouths. And there's nothing more annoying sometimes than working from a plot and handing in pages and then having like all this dialogue that you've written in your own head and it doesn't match whatever the writer decided to put down. Even like occasionally, like I'll put write stuff in the margins. It's like maybe you could have them saying that. Nope, it's not gonna. Fine, whatever. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. We're not obviously not on the same page here, pal. So.
You recently worked with Tom Payer with High Comics, launching really a High Comics with the Wrong Earth.
Yeah.
It was, for me, it was a really pleasant experience to show your work because you show yourself very fun stuff. It was seeing the both sides of the same coin, no?
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, that was the when Tom pitched it to me over the phone, I was just like, yeah, yes, please, I gotta do this. Well, Tom is one of my favorite comic book writers. And I loved Our Man. I love this Legion of Superheroes. Like, is one of those guys that like we knew people in common, but we had never met. And then once we met and started talking to each other, we realized that our sense of humor and the things that we were into lined up very much. Cameo by my daughter. And just like talking to him, it's encyclopedic. He's a guy with deep knowledge of the genre and the industry, and just laid back and good natured, and he and I have never had a cross word. It's just a fun experience. And then you take a project like this, which we don't want to compare Dragonfly Man or Dragonfly to a certain pointy-eared Cape Crusader, but at the same time, it's given me the opportunity to sort of work out whatever feelings I have about both versions of that character. Like, I'm a kid who grew up watching Adam West on reruns on television and had opening night tickets to Tim Burton's Batman in 1989, like in my Batman t-shirt with I was on Twitter, I had showed people that I still have the movie guide from 89.
Yeah.
And then I just got this.
By the way, you have a lovely studio, eh?
You just got this week, so which is awesome because it has the inked pages from the original. Hold on, you can see it.
The other side. There you are.
There you go. It's got the inked pages alongside the color artwork. So,
Wow.
Beautiful.
So this is Jerry Ordway. Absolutely one of the all-time greatest comic book artists in this industry.
And a bit underappreciated, no?
Oh yeah.
Ordway is a monster for me.
Absolutely, just one of the best. I've been rereading some older stuff. I had the Infinity Incorporated trade, the hardcover. It was buried in a box somewhere, and we've been doing some changes in the apartment, and I found that, and then I was reading that, and then this week I was reading Legion Lost by Abnett and Lanning and Olivia Coipel and Paxil Leagues. So I'm catching up on all the stuff that I hadn't read in a very long time, or wasn't on my radar back then. But yeah, I mean, just that got me going. Like now,
You are a fan too.
I make no bones about it. I went to the comic shop this week. I picked up the new issue of Excellence.
Okay.
Bitter Root #9. So, there's some stuff that came out. My local shop unfortunately hasn't been getting the regular supply of comics because, thank you, coronavirus.
Yeah, we are the same all over the world.
Yeah, it's a mess. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm a fan. I'm always gonna be a fan. I don't know. I can understand some people who work in the business for a long time who feel like, I can't read comics anymore. It's too much. It's what I do for a living. But I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I like looking at other people's work. I like seeing good writing. I like seeing good artwork. There is a uniqueness to comics that doesn't exist in any other form. You can try and replicate it, with film and television, especially the technology now, but it's not the same thing. There's active participation when you're reading and you're becoming fully immersed in that world, as opposed to when you're watching a movie, which is passive. You're an observer, you're not a participant. So I prefer that participation, getting involved in the stories, seeing how, both as a reader and as a creator, seeing how the story advances. I have as much fun reading a good script as I do, drawing it.
Okay.
All right. So, final question by Wookie.
Yeah, well, you're a fan. That's some very cool. Do you have toys of the characters you have worked?
I do actually. I think I have 4 versions of Firestorm. Well, no, I've got a few.
You want to do the cover, eh?
I've got a few. I point the camera up a little bit. You guys can see the shelf.
Oh yeah, at the top shelf. There you are.
Yeah. So there's the shelf. Hold on. There's the shelf of doom. So somewhere in the back is the Hot Toys Incredible Hulk from the first Avengers movie, and then I got a Supergirl, and then I got my autograph photo of Margot Kidder.
Wow.
And then
Excellent.
Nice collection.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
It's kind of interesting because previously we had the chance to talk with Chuck Dixon, and it was really fun because he also has a lot of action figures of the characters that he has written and created.
Yeah.
So we could actually count like at least 5 different versions of Bane just behind him. So don't worry, if you have like 20 Firestorms, you are not alone. So. All right, so we're pretty much getting to the final part of, actually to the end of this show. Hopefully we can get you again in the not so far future, Jamal, because honestly we had a blast. You guys in the audience, if you were just listening to what we were talking before the show, we were talking about breeds of dogs, we were talking about different stuff that was actually quite fun, not necessarily only about comics and the business. However, in case that people want to get to know more about your work, I don't say in case that people want to contact you because there has to be something fixed.
No, I fixed the contact button. Push the button. So when you click on the button now, click on the button.
All right. Let me just refresh. We are going to be doing this live, so either I am mistake or I don't know.
No, I fixed the button. So
All right.
hit the
Oh,
button.
there you are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey!
This is magic.
Programmer too.
All right, so it's already fixed. So now, if people want to get to know more about your work, and actually, if people want to reach you, they now can do it right now, and they can just go to jamaligle.com. And also, in case that you are more like a visual person, which pretty much right now, if you enjoy comics, probably you will be in here. They can also follow you in Instagram. Any other means that you want to comment about how people can see about your work?
Mostly these days, I'm either on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, or I'm on Twitter. If you go to my website, you can reach me from all there. So,
all right,
and then there's plenty of artwork on there for you to look at too. So,
and I am quite sure that you will find something.
The meme from Jamal that he got the picture of Tinder, of Instagram. I really love that meme.
It was really fun. I'm actually trying to find it, but yeah, I remember that when we were doing part of the research, we were just laughing out loud about that. It's so real.
Yeah. In the picture from your DC file, from your DC file, you can see why people didn't want to mess with you when you were drawing Firestorm. Because you were massive. And then the one I think the one you have in Ahoy and your website is the second reason, because this is the second reason why people wouldn't like to mess with you, if they don't like what you're doing.
Any complaints?
It will be like something like you want to tell to me. Yeah. Want to talk about it?
I'm a big boy. That's all I have to say.
All right, guys. So you have been warned. In case that you have any complaints, Jamal will actually help us to attend some of that. And remember that if you want to see more about his art, well, you can find him obviously in different social networks and of course in his main page. And remember that if you like this transmission, we have a Patreon. Yes, we have a Patreon like pretty much everybody else, but you can find us in patreon.com/D-Strip-Ando, where actually we publish just one day before we had this interview. You could get in this case a show in there. Actually, there you can see it's already in there recorded. It's some sort of I don't know magic that it's in there available. And we have obviously the regular shows in our main page. We have also alternative covers. We have a lot of art and a lot of shows in here, new sections in there in patreon.com/D-Strip-Ando. And if you have a buck to spend, we will gladly have it in there. So thanks again, Jamal, and thanks to Psycho, who is going to mention something else.
No, I was to ask Jamal if we can see him in the nearly future with other projects that he can talk about us.
Absolutely. Anytime you want to have me on.
All right, so there it is. It was before an open invitation, but right now let's put a date to this. Don't worry, you will know after that when we can talk about these futures. It will be something that you will be interested. So thanks to everybody for joining us in this conversation, and thanks, Jamal. It was honestly one of the most fun shows that we had in a long time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, and this is the screen that we have for YouTube. So in case that you're watching this in YouTube later, there will be another video that you can watch in here. And at the other square that it's in there with Jamal, there will be perhaps in the future another interview